Hey, welcome. We are back. Welcome to Cuddle with
What's
Purpose.
up? What's up? What's up?
Definitely. So let's just get right into our topic of conversation. Definitely what I would like to talk about, far as in relationships. I know, a lot of people don't know, um, what is a toxic relationship to them.
Hmm.
And I find it kind of baffling a little bit. And I guess because I know I can speak from experience because we want to be authentic on our actual YouTube channel. And I just know
Right.
for me, I was in a toxic relationship before I met you.
Right.
And I was married one time and I started to see the signs
Right.
of that toxic relationship. And, even going further than that, um, I saw some toxic relationships even within the relationship with my dad and my mom.
Right.
And I saw some things that I was not happy. And now, I'm not bashing, what I'm saying, my parents. I lost my dad in 2017,
Hmm.
but I think it's very important to just be as authentic as possible because I believe it's healing in that. And I think
Hmm.
if we bottle certain things in, it can hurt us to a certain aspect. And the reason why I say that because of those things that I saw within, my parents' relationship, even though they've been married for over 30 years,
Right.
I knew I didn't want that for my relationship as far as in marriage. So that's why, I tried all the resources of counseling, and then I had the children's mother did not want to continue with counseling, and that was a big red flag to me. So I had to make a tough decision that I want to just continue in that toxic relationship, and I
Hmm.
started to develop different things: sickness, stress, depression. I even developed ulcers, with an ulcerative colitis
Right.
because of that stress and
Right.
depressed. And I think it's so very important, and I'm so glad that we have our own authentic YouTube channel where we can actually just tell people some of the signs of toxic relationships.
Right. Right. I think I'm glad we're having this conversation just because, sometimes that that experience of toxicity that comes into your relationship, it can show up even though you're trying to separate yourself from it and
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to avoid it. And then, for example, you brought it up in like your last marriage and you brought it up from your past experience as far as your parents. But
Yeah.
we've had, I feel like I've seen toxic stuff in even in our own marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just because sometimes you don't even know that you're being toxic.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you don't even know that you're experiencing that because you're in some way sometimes trying to defend who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, just personally, coming from not marriage but coming from a relationship, I know I previously accepted something because I just wanted to be in a relationship,
Mm. Mm.
in the previous relationship.
Right.
And it was long distance, right?
Right.
And then it was kind of like, that young woman, like, I'm going to just hold on to this because it kind of looks like it's stable. This person looks and appears like they got it together. And I'm not trying to for the young girls out there, I ain't trying to add nobody to my body count. I'm trying to keep it minimal, and just being real,
Yeah.
about the situation.
Yeah.
Yet you've experienced somebody cheating on you and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of rationalize some of the things that's happening. But you're like, what, it's okay because we ain't married yet.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know, we
Yeah.
ain't married yet.
Yeah.
So you kind of deal with things because of that. And just now going into our marriage, I feel like part of me bringing in I guess some toxic habits is just because I'm coming from I've been single, I'm independent.
Right.
I came from a single parent home.
Mm-hmm.
And you giving me, advice or structure or consistency or consistent input, and like being right there in my face about a lot of things made me feel like, and my response could bring some toxicness into the relationship because of that. And so, I feel like I'm just glad like to be aware of it, I'm glad to know that we are working through things to make sure that we don't bring that into our marriage. And if there is something that's lying there, that we're doing things to push it out. Because one thing we don't ever want, people to feel like, oh, we're so perfect. Right. Because that's not what this is about. Right. We work our butts off to make sure that our relationship is healthy. Right. And just like the rest of the world, people may not see all of the negative aspects of your relationship, but I feel like they really shouldn't have to. Why? Because I feel like privacy is so important to a marriage and to a relationship, right? Yeah. But anyway, I feel like some of the things that we learn as well, or bringing like parents into the situation can bring, toxic stuff into the relationship because they're dealing with a toxic thought process as well. And we both dealt with that, even in our marriage, especially starting off, because we were so close with our parents and stuff like that. And we had to do exactly what the Bible says, cling to one another and cut people off to a certain degree. And I feel like people don't do that either. I feel like that could definitely bring some toxicness into the relationship, right?
Yeah. I think that's very important. And just to extend what you just said on the latter part, I think I think when people hear the word cut someone off, they think immediately of a negative connotation to it. Right. And I think it's unfair because I feel that every individual have their own right to be able to protect their energy, to be able to protect and set boundaries for their own relationship because, it's been proven, even with talking with our therapist, which me and my wife, we go through with therapy too as well. We don't wait till something bad happens. We believe in therapy. And, what our therapist was just saying is just, how you have people going on these reality shows and things like that. And a lot of people think that the reality shows are fake, but guess what? He even said it, that yes, it is some fluff to it, but a lot of people, their marriage was ruined because how much access they give people on the outside into their actual relationship. Right. So I think that's why it's so very important is to make sure that you do set boundaries. And sometimes with certain people, it may be best that you do cut them off, especially if they're not respecting your boundary.
I agree with that. I think that there's something that's so important about you just keeping people out of your marriage.
Absolutely.
I mean, because if you think about it, you think about the relationships that you have with people. You think about people's behavior. You think about the things that they've done previously or the things that they've said, even about other people's relationship. Why the hell would you be talking about your relationship, even if it's something small? Because people will take one small thing and blow it up, truth be told. But why would you share your marriage with somebody? Like, why? What advice could they possibly give you? Not saying that people don't have valid advice or they don't have valid experiences. Yeah. But you have to have a level of discernment with your relationship.
Absolutely.
You really
absolutely. And it goes into, with our ebook me and you had wrote together, and it's called 7 Common Warning Signs of a Toxic Relationship. And I definitely will put the link in the caption of this video. And you can tap on that link and you can go and order that ebook. it's several commonalities
Yeah.
that's found in toxic relationships. And
Yeah.
one of those things that was profound that me and you came up with
Mhm.
was controlling behavior.
Mhm.
And controlling behavior is something that I believe, far as when me and you, we first got together, and then when both of our families, you know, when I met your family, there was a commonality that was kind of like attached to my name of Sam's controlling.
Right.
And I think it was unfair, especially I think it's unfair when people don't get the time to know you
Right.
and to understand you. And I think they immediately put that type of negative commonality on you
Right.
when they don't even know you. And I think it was more so of they felt that I was taking you from them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because they
Yeah.
were so used to have full access to you.
Right.
And so now when you found the love of your life and, you know, things moving fast, you know how love goes, you know, 1 to 6, you know, so fast.
Mhm.
And, you know, next thing you know, we getting married.
Right.
And I mean, we got married like in 6 months or less.
Right.
And, you know, that is probably not the traditional way,
Right.
but
we almost to 6 years, so
there you go. And
I mean, what y'all say? What they say? Oh, okay, go ahead.
So, you know, even with that controlling behavior, I think that is something to be talked about with one of the signs. And we definitely don't want to go over everything that we
Right.
actually wrote in that actual ebook, because we want to give you an opportunity to be able to purchase that. And so that way you can read up on it. But that's something, controlling behavior, I think is something to talk about.
Right. I do, but I do want to actually talk about a few, because I feel like it's a thin line.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like it's a thin line of identifying when someone is controlling in the relationship. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I feel like some people may not even know that they may be controlling. I do feel like sometimes that it has to be brought to their attention. And the controlling factor can come from the fact of when you just don't want things to fall apart.
Mm.
You know, when you've experienced, and I feel like that comes from anybody in any relationship. I feel like people throughout a relationship, the controlling factor may also like switch roles, where it's like where you see something that's happening or you've experienced something, you're like, no, I don't want this to happen, so I want to make sure that this goes this way.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if it goes this way, or I see this type of behavior, or I see whatever it is, then it could go left, it can go wrong. Mm-hmm. And in all honesty, sometimes we may confuse that person with somebody from the past.
Yeah.
Or confuse that with something that you've heard of or you've seen. So I think that just in general, people just have to be aware of themselves. Right. I think that spouses have to just have that real conversation. And also people, like you say, you can't toe tag a person. Yeah. You know, you just can't toe tag a person.
And I'm big on that.
Yeah.
I'm big,
right.
you know, and I'm big on toe tagging, because I feel it can be a negative situation, especially if it happens consistently. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things what we wrote in our book is mm-hmm. that controlling behavior, toxic relationships often have an element of control.
Right.
Now, with that being said, we went on to say, does your partner always have to have everything their way?
Right.
And I think that's the key, because mm-hmm. I know in our marriage, you know, yeah, I like to have certain things my way, but it's definitely not always. And I think I've developed, even over time, a compromise. Mm-hmm. And 9 times out of 10, I may say something there, but then I usually come back around and be like, you know, in agreement with it. But even in that, you have to have a level of consciousness to understand that you cannot sabotage who you are. Mm-hmm. Because if you do, then eventually it's going to come out in other ways and in other areas of that relationship. So right. like you were saying, you have to have, I believe, a balance
Right.
of certain things. Certain things you can compromise on, and some things just based off of your makeup you don't compromise on. Mm-hmm. Especially if you know that's not who you are, and if you feel uncomfortable based off on the situation.
Yes, and I also feel like just being in the relationship and being married to someone that it has a very discerning spirit, mm-hmm. as a wife, just submitting to your spouse's thought process. Sometimes they foresee something that you may not see, and that's because you've been functioning for so long in a I got this mm-hmm. mindset, because I've always had to have this. Mm-hmm. Like, I always got this, and then I got this, and I got who's attached to me as well. Mm-hmm. And that's always been my mindset. And so I know for me personally, and it's still an ongoing learning process, is, Tiara, you don't always have to have this. Like, mm-hmm. that's why you married this amazing husband, so he got this. Yeah. And I love the covering. That's probably why I've gone MIA from the rest of the world, because I love the fact that you got it. I love the fact that I can lean in on you, but it's still sometimes that person, and I wouldn't even say independent part of me, because I feel like that's so important to still have that within you. I feel like that's a part of who I am that makes me great. But I would say that more rebelling aspect, or that person that had to fight so hard to survive, prior to having that covering, to understand that you're saying things and you're telling me something because you can foresee it. Mm-hmm. And so I really appreciate that, just about our relationship and our marriage overall. I know one of the other things is, does she insist on going with you when you spend time with your friends? Now that's a little weird. That is a little weird. I mm-hmm. feel like that has never been neither one of us. Right. Right. And maybe it's just because partly most of your friends and or associates are already in a long marriage. We do have over 5 years of an age difference. Mm-hmm. Also, no shade, because I like that wisdom. But also, that's never been an issue, ever. And I feel like if somebody's always trying to infiltrate your relationship, or your friendships and what you do, then that is totally weird. And that's really all I have to say about that particular one. That's just, no, you shouldn't do that. You should definitely have your space and your girl time or your guy time, right, and stuff like that. Like, I know we even had this conversation where, because I now have a short haircut, we all get haircuts. And we love being together. I mean, we just love it. That's just who we are, right? Yeah. But then I even noticed, I was like, babe, you used to love, like, when I met him, like, his barber time was his time. It was his experience. He loved it. And, we then started learning, like, he needs to still have that time to himself. Like, we don't always have to be getting our haircut at the same time, although he's the one who's still taking me most of the time, because I'm not driving at this particular second.
But we're looking forward to you gonna be taking your simulator.
Yes, I'll be taking my simulator. I'm super excited about that. Yeah. This is definitely an involvement in my recovery, so I'm looking forward to see where I'm at with that. But yeah. I'm glad you get your Baba time back, babe. Yeah. By yourself. Me too. How you liking that now?
It's good. I feel, I would say that it is important to have that isolation time. sometimes my isolation time is, if I'm downstairs and I'm working, whether it's in my office or even at the kitchen table, and I'm able to get work in, because I love structure and I love working. I love coming up, and I've been always a creator.
Right.
So just being able to create something from nothing, I think is in the true DNA of who I am as an entrepreneur.
Right.
And I feel it's very important to have that alone time, whether it's for an hour or two, just to be able to get your thoughts and your creative side developed, because it does take that, because it's hard to do that when you're taking care of a 3-year-old. It's hard to do that, when you're spending that time with your significant other, and you have to put that time into that. So you don't have really time for other things. So I think it's just been very important, and it's still a work in progress. Continue as we continue to grow, is putting that time aside to be able to work even more on that creative side of things. And I believe when we do put that time aside, that's why we came up with this ebook, 7 Common Warning Signs of a Toxic Relationship. And, it's very important to talk about those things, because I feel we have a lot of experience, and we are married. Like you said, we've been married for over 5 years, going on 6 years. Has it been peaches and cream? No, there's no marriage that's peaches and cream. But what I would say to you, we have experience in how to work through certain things, or work through certain commonalities, because when you have two people that are alike but not alike in the same breath in certain ways, it does come to an understanding that there has to be a give sometimes in the relationship, in the marriage, and it has to be an understanding. It has to be a balance. And I think that's where sometimes the rift can come in. If there's not really a balance of understanding, then it can kind of like cause a rift within that relationship.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. I think another thing we do talk about is distrust.
Yeah.
And having distrust in your marriage is very toxic, because you're now walking on eggshells in some type of way. You're not believing what your significant other is saying. You're not believing what your significant other is doing. And
Yes.
I am so grateful that we haven't had to really face distrust necessarily in our relationship. And I think that's just because of the level of respect that we have for ourselves. I feel like that's a part of those standards that we have had for ourselves. And we've experienced a lot. We've gone through a lot. But infidelity is something that we've never experienced. And I don't plan on us ever having to experience that on either parts. And I know that that can cause a lot of distrust and a lot of toxic behaviors, because people are, side eyeing their significant other and also looking at them as an enemy. I will say that distrust is something that is somewhat of a habit, because if you have had toxic relationships, or you've been in a toxic relationship previously, when you start to either have a flashback or a recap of what you've seen in an ex or something, those emotions and feelings can come up in your current relationship.
Absolutely.
And I feel like people have to figure out a way to kind of like brush that off or slap it out the way, because if you kind of like dwell or zone in on it, it can really harm your relationship.
Yes,
I feel like if you feel like people don't always have your back, you can also think that your significant other doesn't have your back based upon what they say or what they do. And that's not even the case. I know for me, I could be brutally honest, right? And my response that you're looking for sometimes is not the response that you get.
Right.
And we've had that conversation before about, You're like, do you really have my back? Because I'm the optimistic person. I always see
Right.
the other side of things.
Right.
And that's not a bad thing. That's just a part of my character. And sometimes it'll feel like that support isn't necessarily there.
Mm-hmm.
But I know we've talked about it. Like, I always got your back.
Mm-hmm.
At all times.
Yeah.
And I know that there's couples out there that probably feel the same way and or have had those different experiences. And it's like, bruh, you said this. Do you really have my back? Of course. Of course I do. Like hands down.
I know one of the things we came up with in the distrust was does your partner quiz you to try to catch you in the lie?
My God.
Now, I do that sometimes. And
it's annoying as fuck.
And my wife doesn't like that. Now, understand this. It is a method of me doing that. And the reason being is because sometimes I want to know, what's going on in your head. Like, if you say one thing and I know it's another, why would you say that when that's not true, or and things of that nature. And I just think it comes to back what you were saying is that sometimes I do feel that on certain things that if I have, especially maybe a firm understanding that it should be this or that person shouldn't do that, and then it's the opposite. I'll be like, man, you ain't listening to me, bruh. I'm trying to tell you, bruh, this is a messed up situation. and especially if sometimes if it comes back and it hits you and it hits us, and it'll be like, see, that's what I was trying to tell you, man. You don't listen.
But what if it's not that situation? What if it's just that you have a level of distrust because you just don't trust certain people, or you just see things or characteristics, and that's not always the situation, because it's not every single time.
No, it's not. It's not every single time. But I will.
No, I'm just saying, it's just one of those things where if you wake up like, looking for something, and it's like, bruh, but I'm your spouse. Like, why you doing me like this? Like, that feels very awkward. It feels very weird. It causes like weirdness, like it makes your significant other feel uncomfortable if you don't have that level of confidence and trust in that person. I do feel like that just kind of waters things down to a certain degree.
Well, it just depends on the situation. I think it depends on the situation. I think that's something to have an understanding about, and as you can start seeing, if you see that there is a pattern there, depending on that situation, maybe that is something, and that's what therapy is there for, is to go to therapy and to try to figure those things out, so that way you can grow. Because I know the older that I'm getting, I ain't got time to go back and forth, and I think with me, what I'm understanding is I just would like to just be in my peace zone. And whether I'll say something to T, be like, hey, I ain't got time for this, because I know your level, when your pitch, when that pitch goes up, what I'm developing is, I kind of like go down, and I'll be like, you know what? I ain't got time for this. Like,
do y'all experience in a relationship with your spouse think everything is an argument? It ain't even no argument.
But I know you.
But you know yourself, because it's weird. Like, I know there'll be moments where in my head, I think that we're having a conversation, and my pitch may go up and they may not. It just go up because it just probably just naturally going up because I'm passionate about what I'm saying. And Lord knows he passionate and he get loud just because he just naturally loud. And so here I am thinking, like, I already know where it's going to go, but I don't foresee an argument. I just see that we are two alpha personalities We have our thought process. We think the way that we think. And it's not an argument. It's something that I can laugh off because that's just who I am. I am very when it comes, I'm very resilient and I'm very like, okay, we can move on. Like we can have the biggest disagreement and I'm still looking for a kiss at the end of it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still looking for a hug at the end of it. Let me ask y'all, which one of you in your relationship um turn an argument into I mess with you to the next day type thing? Or are you the person who can just be like, all right, it's all good, but I still love you? Because that's I think that is something that's really important in taking that toxic behavior out of the relationship, of being able to be resilient and still move on to the next place or moment without bringing any type of negativity, carrying it with you. I think that that's another way to get through arguments and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I believe, far as for me, that is something that I have gotten even a whole lot better in. Coming from my background, I am a very competitive person. I'm a person that has strong beliefs in certain things and for good reason. And I also feel that I have great discernment in certain things. So, with that being said, I do feel earlier in our relationship and through the counseling that we have been doing, I have been more self conscious of, when there are disagreements or things of that nature, learning how to just move on, even if you have to agree to disagree, and knowing how to move on with life. With that being said, with distrust, I feel, we talked about one of the elements is, if a person that's in relationship have to justify that they're right all the time, I feel that it depends on the situation.
Right.
It depends on if it comes back 9 times out of 10 is justification. Uh, or if you feel you have to justify yourself all the time. And I think it was just more so about why that person may have to feel they have to justify depending on what the situation is. And I think it just depends in that relationship or in your relationship in what do you have to feel that you have to justify. Was there cheating involved? And that person may feel like, I can't trust you anymore. So I always got to justify where you at. I always got to justify this certain thing. So it just depends on the dynamics of the relationship, what has happened prior to, on something that may have broke that trust and may have caused distrust and may have magnified that in that relationship.
I agree. One of the other things that I thought was funny, because when we were going over this, it just made me think about literally just one situation. So, with passive aggressive behavior.
Now I don't want to go over the whole thing. You giving them over the whole book.
I mean,
They have to purchase the book.
Well, one of the things y'all going to read about is passive aggressive.
Yes. Don't give them all the meat. Yeah, they have to invest if people want to really get in their relationship.
They just gonna, at least they'll know this is that's just the title of that.
Because we do have a freebie of an ebook me and my wife created. We have
got some freebies for you guys.
Yeah, so if you want to know more, and that's a real good one that me and my wife broke down, far as passive aggressive,
aka pettiness.
So that's a good one. So if you definitely want to actually read the whole PDF documents on what we wrote down, some great information there. Tap on that link. We're going to put it in the actual description, so that way you can purchase that book. Now, let's talk about our, I don't want to call free, because I feel that the value we bring is great value. So I don't even like using the word free. But what I will say, we created another ebook for our brand, Cuddle with Purpose.
It's a gift.
And I'm not going to even say, my wife can say gift, but I'm going to say we gave it an option where you can actually sow into us based off on the value that we gave you. So you can give any amount that you want, but it's available. That's going to be actually in the caption of this video. And the basis of the ebook is Foundations of Healthy Relationship. And what we created was a fact sheet,
right.
FACT sheet. And it's great. And
we're taking y'all to school.
And one of the things that we talk about is the 3 types of safety in the relationships, because we understand that this is a season, because I know I enjoy watching reality shows. That's just me. Yep, I get up watching reality shows. You know, a couple of our favorite reality shows is Love and Marriage Huntsville. Another one is Married to Medicine. Definitely we like that Married to Medicine of LA, but we don't know if that's coming back on. But
and
Love and Hip Hop of Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm kind of, it's all right.
You have to understand the dynamics. You know, with us being life and success coach, it's more than just watching it for entertainment.
Right.
We watch it and we learn and we get something from it. Right. And that's the key. And that's what's all within the creativity of our books and our material that we create, because we have experience as well. And we kind of just, it's very kind of interesting to be able to watch how things play out when you watch some of these reality shows. So back to what I was saying, we talk about in our other ebook is the Foundations of Healthy Relationships fact sheets, is 3 types of safety in relationships, 3 types. And the 3 types we came up with and created is physical safety,
yes,
in a relationship, emotional safety,
yes,
in a relationship, and commitment safety.
Oh my goodness.
In a relationship.
All of these, it just made me feel safe just talking about it, because, I think that these are kind of like the guidelines to having a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Whether it's with a significant other, whether it's with your parents, or even if it's with the friends. I feel like it should be safety within it, because that's where it builds that long-term bond that brings joy and peace. I feel like you should be able to go in a cocoon with the love of your life and feel safe from a mental, physical, and emotional aspect. And if you don't feel comfortable, that I feel like it's so important that you are able to share with your significant other where you feel like there's something lacking.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of times, and I'm talking because I feel like physical is like, it's like a no-brainer. You should know that you shouldn't be putting your hands on one another in any type of way. But when and I feel like if you are not in some type of open relationship, you should know that there should be a level of commitment in that aspect. But there's so many things that you have to commit to in relationships or in a marriage. But emotional safety is, I feel like it's like one of the biggest things. Like when you talk about, I just think about, for me, just dealing with like depression and anxiety, especially since suffering my stroke and working on my level of confidence, and not allowing, or trying to not allow insecurities to creep in, due to my heaviness and my weight gain, those things of just being tired, and just all those things. But just having your reassurance really helps. When there isn't reassurance, it just brings up so much insecurity.
Yeah.
And when there's insecurity, that is a recipe for your emotional safety to go straight down the drain. Literally.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think in marriages, people often feel that marriages done being been together for over 5 or 10, 15, 20 years. They think that yes, it gets easy the longer you've been with somebody. But I am of the belief that it's kind of like the opposite. Yes, you may know or get familiar or know your spouse, you know what I'm saying, yeah, and be comfortable with your spouse because y'all been together for so long. But I think it can build up a level of laziness in a relationship. It can.
Yeah.
It can build up a level of where you just can get bored, and I think that's something that's of importance that you definitely, if you're in a relationship and only you, the person that's in the relationship, understand if you're bored with somebody, because sometimes in relationships appearances may change.
Right.
Sometimes in relationships a person hunger for something may change, or something may change within the bedroom and things of that nature. And this is something that we're communicating with you of value. So
Right.
definitely, if this is something that you want more counseling on, you can actually reach us, and we it's definitely some very important stuff of
Yeah.
experience. But sometimes the longer you've been with somebody, the more conscious you have to be in that relationship of certain things. So it's almost like self development. It's almost like self awareness.
Yeah.
And you have to always be aware of your emotions in a relationship, your feelings, which it can be tied into your emotions,
Right.
but also your thoughts
Yes.
and your actions.
I agree.
And those things, when it's add up in one, it can definitely be something where it can either help the relationship or it can not help the relationship, which can cause some issues within that marriage or relationship that you're in.
Mm.
Yeah.
You said a mouthful right there, man.
Yeah.
You really did. When you were saying all of that, it made me think about how people grow in relationships.
Yeah.
You know, what used to make your spouse tick may not be what makes them tick today. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? And people, like, saying when you may get tired of a meal, you might get tired of certain things. And so you have to do things to continue to keep your relationship with some spice in it. And I'm not just talking about just in the bedroom, but we're talking about intimacy. We're talking about spending time together. We're talking about how you may touch that person, and touch that person at random times. Like, I feel like you should never walk past your spouse. And we've actually experienced this, just walking past each other um, and not even touch each other. And that may be for whatever reason, whether we're just not thinking about it or whether we just ain't feeling each other at that particular moment.
Or it could be life. It could be that that
Yeah.
person's mind is on other things. So
Yeah.
it can be a plethora of different things. But I think
Right.
it's the most important thing is communication.
Mhm.
Because I think if the spouse that you're in a relationship and you are dealing with some of the things that we're talking about right now,
Right.
the level of communication should step in,
Right.
where you should be able to talk to your spouse
Mhm.
about what the issues is, if there are issues, because it probably doesn't have nothing to do with you.
Right.
It could be that it could be some stress coming down on the other spouse, and they're
Right.
just, it gets them caught up in certain things where their mind tends to wonder on some things, and because they have so many things that's going on in their head. So it could be a lot of stuff.
I agree. I think that when things like that happen, outside of talking to your spouse about it, um when I say that, I want to also point out the fact that you got to know how to talk to your spouse about it.
Yeah.
You have to know what is the right time to bring it up. I know for me, when I thought about something, I always thought, well, I've always heard you never want to be silent in your marriage. You never want to assume that your spouse knows. So I would just blurt it out just so that he knows that it's out there. But if I don't say it in the right way, if I don't say it at the right time, it may not be received, and vice versa. And so that's just something that you always have to keep
absolutely
at the forefront of your mind, that although this may be very important, it is so important that maybe you send a text to them to avoid your voice or your tone sounding a certain type of way that may be a trigger for your significant other. And then the other part of it, my brain just kind of like left me what I was about to say.
It'll come back to you.
It'll come back to me. But yeah, safety in a relationship is so important.
Yeah.
And I think you should definitely work on that in so many different ways.
Yes, it is. And definitely it's a pleasure to talk about these things, because there's not a lot of talks that's going on about, just the depths of toxic. If you turn on the TV or if you listen to the news, there's a lot of dysfunction that's going on in relationships. I do know, even me and Tierra knows, people that's going through a lot of things in their own relationships.
Right.
And it's so very important. I believe that you can have so many years of happiness in a marriage, but it can take one situation that can ruin that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have to always be self-aware of that, because a lot of people don't understand that, or they take it for granted. And I think it's always important to be proactive. It's always important to not be so hyper when it comes to certain things. But I'm learning this as the older that I get, is that life can be short and that life is precious. And I believe the more calm that you can, communicate or come up with solutions, the better off you'll be for your own personal health.
Oh my goodness. Facts.
Yeah. So definitely, it's a pleasure talking to y'all, and definitely make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so that you can get notified on new content that we'll be having coming your way. And we're going to put in the description both links to our ebooks. One of the ebooks is 7 Common Warning Signs of a Toxic Relationship. And you would definitely need to purchase that book. You can tap on the link on that. We also have another ebook that we created for our fans, for our audience. And you can give whatever you want to give, whatever. We just wanted to make sure that we can give value off of that, to give to you. And that's the Foundations of Healthy Relationships fact sheet. So we'll definitely post those in the description.
Yeah, guys. So make sure you guys definitely love on each other.
Yes.
We would love to hear from you, so don't hesitate to message us.
Comment. And you got me. Comment on the thread. Comment.
Like. All
if you like, let us know.
Yes.
Like this video. Put some comments in the video. Engage with us.
Tell us what you want to hear from us next as well. And if you don't do anything, make sure you cuddle with purpose.
That's right. Cuddle with purpose.